Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Circle of the World podcast, where we discuss Joe Abercrombie's First Law series. I am one of your hosts, Lord Chamberlain Jeffrey, and here are my co-hosts.
It's Lisa George.
And Harrison, the Adeptus Historical.
And we continue our coverage of The Heroes, Joe's second standalone and the next First Law entry. And we cover blood, pointed metal, and peace in our time. So let's get started. Before I just jump into it, gotta thank you all. At the time of this, as always, at the time of this recording, we had went officially a week without releasing an episode because of travel considerations, Georgie, and then we just wanted to.
Everybody's got to have a holiday, Jeffrey. It's not my fault that I'm 6 hours behind you guys, and therefore recording becomes quite difficult.
6 hours ahead. You're 6 hours.
Well, we appreciate you all being patient for your weekly dose of idiocy.
Yep. And you guys have been very supportive on the social medias, and we would just like for you to continue that, please. And so, just keep following us, or spread the word. And if you don't follow us, then follow us on social media and subscribe to our YouTube channel, and send us some emails because we like hearing from you. We had another comment on a YouTube page. I think it was the other day. If one of you looked at it,
lots of people agreeing with my bias theory.
That
2 years after I put that video up.
Yeah, I still don't see it.
Better late than never.
Go fuck yourself.
Rude, but okay.
What? I was supporting you.
No,
even though you're wrong.
Better late than never is not supportive at all. You bastard.
It's because you're British and you just take everything negatively.
Jesus.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Let's take it that way.
Yeah, there you go. All right. Well, so yeah, just wanted to thank you all for your support, and but we'll just jump right into it. And we're gonna go right to our first chapter read through, which is Blood, Count Orlok. Okay. Anyway, so so we start off this chapter from the perspective of our boy Redbeck, and he is scared because the Union soldiers are coming to the heroes. They are clamoring, and it is a packed frenzy there, right? You have men with spears.
We basically get all of Joe's massive knowledge of war films and everything crammed into this one miserable segment, isn't it? It's just like, yeah, everything's fucking shit. We're all crammed in, crashing and getting on with it.
There's spears and jostling and pushing away and running away and angry,
metal and grunting and all of those manly things.
Big man.
And Becky's not a big fan of it.
No. I mean, the guy hid in a cupboard, off of what, 5 Union men? Of course he's gonna fucking freak out over here, where there's hundreds and thousands, but he's, he can't really run because he's packed in tight like sardines. So he's getting elbowed in the head.
The true point of ancient warfare. Put the weak men on the inside so they can't flee.
And I love Beck as this archetype as, somebody who's, the fish out of water in way above the heads.
Yeah, no, for sure. So Beck is in the middle of this, let's just say mob, or you could say just this pandemonium where there's like a surge in the crowd and what have you. But he can't move, even though he's getting hit in the face. He even sees, I think, like a spear slowly coming his way, and he just kind of like edges away, like, no, thank you. And then,
as you do.
Yeah, as you do. And then at some point, there's another surge, and he's able to kind of like not break free, I don't want to say, but there's some space that opens up. And then on the other side of the gap, he sees that, the Union have arrived. And Craw, we switch over to Craw now. And Craw is behind his shield, pushing against the Union. And Dow is yelling something, and Craw's like, I can't fucking hear you. And then he starts like regretting. He's like, why did I say yes to Big Dow second? It's just because I thought maybe I was 3 second once and I was important and I was a good guy. And now I thought I could like recapture that honor. I don't think so. Fucking sucks.
Gorse, is that you?
Your Majesty. No, no, not yet.
I love to see Crawl collapse like this. Like his whole big, I'm gonna do the right thing, just collapses right under pressure straight away.
I don't think so.
Does he?
No, it doesn't.
Well,
No, not
I know what you mean. Like in his own mind, right? Like he always. And
Oh,
it's
you
not even
mean-
just this time. It's every
Yeah.
single time. Like he's like, gets nervous and stuff. It's always like everything I've done. This is all. I regret everything I've done so far in my
Yeah,
whole life. I should have married calling, and But
he
I do.
always. Go ahead, Harrison. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say I find it interesting that like whenever he mentions calling, he mentions how like all these guys that he's so close to, like. Well, I guess it's a little bit ahead of it, actually. So I'm getting ahead of myself.
Yeah, we are.
Yeah. Well,
I'm bearing off.
But the point is Crawl does this a lot. Every time there's about to be a fight, whether it's the battles or even the skirmishes with Hardbread and stuff. Crawl right before or when he's in the middle of the shit, he's just like, "Why am I doing this? This fucking sucks." He wishes that he should. He says, all the time, should have been a carpenter, right? Should have married Colwyn. That's what he always says.
And then we get this in this moment as well that he didn't even really talk to Colwyn that much.
Right.
He just kind of fancied her, and that was it. And that was as close as somebody as he has ever got.
That's very true. That is very true.
Which is fucking tragic.
Tragic, but also like he does remind me of like, that one friend that you had in high school who like hasn't been with anybody, but he talked about this one girl that he almost got with in high school. You're like, bro, are you over that shit? No wonder Wonderful's like, yeah.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I see what you mean. Mm-hmm.
Like it's sad, but also like it's like if I knew Craw and he mentioned Colwyn, I would be like, really? Still?
Really? It's been years. Get over it.
It's been like 30 years and you didn't even really know her.
But then we'll find some more stuff about Wonderful anyway, so let's move on.
Yeah. So Craw again is in the thick of it, fighting against some men, using his shield as a shield, and also using it as a weapon and smacking into people's faces and stuff. And then he's he looks around and he's also seeing Shivers smashing at somebody, and he goes, "Well, it's a war. It's weird when it comes to wartime because men who are a menace in peacetime become your best hope once the steel starts swinging," which is pretty, funny because Shivers is a scaly boy in the North nowadays.
I mean, it's goddamn true though, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's good to have him, on your side. And then
kind of like what Pharaoh said, right? Like you guys had no problem with him whenever he was protecting you all.
Yeah.
I'm not Logan.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
That's true. Very true. And so at some point, Crawl turns around and he sees a Union officer wearing the most beautiful armor Crawl had ever saw, carved all over with gleaming golden designs. He was beating away stupidly at Black Tao with the muddy sword, had managed to drive him to his knees.
My God! Confirmed, Jalon Horman's as good as Black Tao.
Jalon, I love this for Jalon that he's just
love
like,
it. Yeah, fuck it. He's like, I'm going to. Well, I don't even think he's going beating the shit out of him because when he says beating away stupidly, I'm just imagining Jalon Horman going, yeah.
I know. I feel like he's going all Luke, all Luke on his ass. That's what he's doing.
Yeah.
And Black Dow's like in the middle of doing all this stuff, and he probably stuck up on him. And he's like, "Oh, what the hell?"
He's like, okay. He's
he
probably
got distracted by the armor.
By the armor. I was just gonna say by the armor.
And he's like, "That's
that's good armor.
Waste of a bell. Waste of good armor."
By the fucking dead.
And so Craw, he runs towards them because stand by your chief. So he swings his sword and it cuts across Jalahorn's breastplate. So Jalahorn turns around and then Craw is able to run him through with the sword, right? And
Which I always like how it's a noted part in Joe's stuff how armor actually works. Like he cut across the armor and it didn't do too much, and then got up and close and got underneath his armor and stabbed him.
You've always got to go for the weak points.
Yeah, you go. Yeah, he basically went right underneath it.
Yes.
And So Jallenhorn and Crawl are almost like embracing, and Crawl's trying to get his sword out of there, and and
And that's
then
when he says too that this is closer than he's been to with than even Colin.
yeah, yeah,
I can't. Oh, her name.
yeah, I got you.
Closer than he got to Colin,
Yes,
Yeah, he
which
basically
is
realized.
fucking sad shit.
which means he never even like hugged her.
Because of the way that Wonderful was talking about Colin with Kroll earlier in the book, we got the impression that they were very close and they maybe were even going to get married. And now we find out that he kind of just liked her a bit, and
Yeah, he just liked
that's
it from
as close
afar.
as he's ever been with somebody. And it's
You
just
know,
like,
what kind
oh,
of
that's so sad.
you know what it kind of reminds me of? Did you guys see that movie that came out a couple years ago, the Banshees of Inisherin?
No.
There's a scene with Barry Keoghan's character. He goes up to the girl and he's like, "Would you want to marry me, lass?" And she's like, "No." And he goes, "Well, there goes that dream."
That is very accurate.
Like there was no hint of romance. Like there was, no, and then he just ups and asks her, to marry him or whatever the fuck. Like okay, it wasn't really marriage. I'm butchering it, but you get the point. Anyway, so he's thinking about this. Cross thinking like choices made, huh? Choices. But then perspective cuts immediately across to Gorse, and Gorse was I guess was seeing all this play out and was trying as hard as he can to get there quickly to save Jallenhorn, but he couldn't get there. Too many straining bodies in the way, and by the time he was able to clear his path, the old Northman Crawl had already run Jallenhorn through the guts, and he could see the point of Crawl's sword, on the other side of the breastplate, or at least the armor. And apparently he sees that the general had the oddest expression as his killer struggled to pull the blade out of him, almost a smile, redeemed. And it just, oh God, Jallenhorn. And so,
Oh god, I know. Jallan Horn has had such a good fucking story up to this point, and he just seems like one of those people that just really wants to be thought well of.
right, and to have been able to be competent, viewed as competent, and to have done the right thing, and the fact that he's able to just say, "Fuck it, I've done something. We've made it to the heroes, and we're going down swinging, boys."
Exactly.
Yeah, and so apparently Gorse yelled out loud and was charging towards Crawl. Crawl turns around. He's like, "Holy fuck!" Brings up his shield, but
As you would if somebody was charging towards you, going, ah!
Yeah, and Gorse basically smashes his sword into the shield, and Crawl kind of falls over sideways, and he's about to finish the job, so to say. And then somebody got in his way. Hardly more than a boy swinging a hatchet, shouting. Should we talk about who this is or not yet? We can, right?
This is Droth.
Yeah, this is Droft. This doesn't work out well for Droft. Gorse just kind of sidesteps him, and then basically hacked his fucking brains out with a sword.
And this is a character that we've known pretty much from the start of the story, and it's just like, yeah, Ghost is just like, nah, see you.
Bye. Yeah. And then so
You're in my way now.
yeah. And then a point of a sword whispers at him, and Gorse kind of whips it back, and then kind of looks, and then he got a slight cut on his cheek or whatever, but then he looks and he sees a half-naked Northman facing him with the biggest sword that Gorse had ever seen. He's
Almost unreasonably. I love how it's like Gorse is just describing it as if somebody is singing it for the first time. It's like, this is so fucking stupid. How can this guy hold this sword around? It's so stupid. I can't understand it. And then it just works anyway. It's like, why? Who cares?
He says absurdly long. I like how it's just absurdly long. It's just funny to me. Dull gray metal.
It's true. I mean, It's described as not even being like a traditional longsword, which is very skinny. It's described as being like an enormous fucking broadsword.
Yeah. You're right.
You know what I mean? Like
Now-
literally, like Cloud from Final Fantasy.
Yeah.
You know, literally like that, like a fucking stupidly huge sword.
Mm-hmm. Now, this description right here, we talked about this some episodes ago. I feel like, or
did.
maybe it was on a YouTube channel or something. But there was a talk about is the Father of Swords the work of Canadius,
Yes,
and this is the closest right here because it says dull gray metal,
with a
gleaming
stamp
with a
close to the
single
hilt.
letter stamped near the hilt. This is. I first I was like, no, the Father of Swords is clearly
It's
from a
got to be. It
meteorite.
has to be. It has to be.
But maybe Canadius used the meteorite.
Hey, both of those things could be true.
Right. So maybe that's it.
Also, it could be the fact that Canadius made it just that's simple as that when it in that way. But
Oh fuck,
you know
dude.
they think they need to sharpen it. They just don't know it doesn't need to be sharpened.
dude! That could have been Fenris's sword.
That's what I fucking said.
You
I
did
Yeah,
say
we
that?
talked
said
about this
that.
already. We talked
Like
about this
literally.
Listen. Calm down. Calm down. Calm down.
7, 8 episodes ago.
Calm down.
I'm
Little.
joking. I'm joking.
Alright,
Listen,
I was a little
I
drunk.
said this right. So it
But
was
wait.
said that Fenris was dug out the side of a hill,
You did say this. I
Right.
remember this. Yes. Now it's coming back to me. Yep.
and so it's literally the same hill. They're just like 10 feet apart.
Maybe now, but here's the thing: Fenris was a Glustrad boy, and this is
So
obviously-
what if when Alcalus went fucking supernova, he got blasted away with his sword and landed in the fucking in the hill?
No, but what I'm saying is, why would Canadius have made Glustrad's toy
But-
sword?
I
Well,
don't
listen.
think Canadius necessarily made it for Glustrod's armies. He just happened to fall into a cache of Canadius's weapons back in that day.
I must say,
Okay.
The
I
same
must
way
say-
the Bias did.
I think we did already talk about this quite a bit, so I don't want to spend too long on it. But I do, George, the idea that Glustrad that when Alcus blew up, which didn't actually blow up, it was like a radiation thing, right? But whenever that happened, he was launched into the upper atmosphere and landed in the north and embedded himself into a hill. And he was, but since he landed on his left side, he was fine. It's so preposterous. It's brilliant.
Man, I can imagine Joe putting that into it. I can imagine that. Come on.
He's not that ridiculous, but it would be a.
Man,
it would be
we'll
like
get
a
there
myth.
one day with it, you know.
Oh, Jesus, George.
Truth is stranger than fiction. If you keep going this way, we're gonna have to make up some really random shit.
Yeah, for sure. All right, but let's get back to the chapter. So initially is kind of like this is ridiculous. There's no way this is real. But then he did say that he coughs out all his arrogance in the smoke of Cardati's House of Leisure, where he must treat every fight as if it's his last. So I'm not gonna get too much into the technicalities of this, but this is a pretty cool fight because they are very evenly matched, right? Because he notes that Wirun's control of the sword is incredible because as long as that sword is and as heavy as it is, he wields it with a great amount of speed, agility, and he'll even use it as like almost as you would a spear with like lunging and everything, while also parrying and swinging and everything.
Which, to be fair, is not too uncommon among
Yeah, it's
long
not.
swords.
Yep, right. Because actually, you're right. It's about driving into. Yeah. Anyway, so but they're pretty much evenly matched. I forget if Wirren cuts him again, but I know Gorse cuts him at the knee at some point, right? And Gorse is like, man, this is a guy that's on my level. This is amazing. Will he die? Will I die? And he's like all up in his head and everything.
I actually find that quite like. Just a quick aside, like this is sort of like a really edgy German philosopher, like that kid that's into Nietzsche. It's like, oh, I'm on the edge of what is and what isn't because I'm about to die and I'm experiencing everything. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's all euphoric almost. Like he's achieved the peak of himself. This is everything he's dreamed of. And then in a certain way, because of how Weirin is, I do believe that Weirin is honestly we're kind of getting a POV of Weirin because I think Weirin was feeling the same way, especially with how he's acting afterwards.
Yeah.
Yeah. Gorse is being real ubermensch right now, and and I like how Weirin he's being the graceful fighter, and every time somebody kind of comes between them, it's Gorse that's like, get out of my way, and then just like cuts him across or whatever, even if it's a Union guy. And then at some point they they both swing their swords, and it's that classic, what you see in the movies where the swords interlocked and they're like getting like close up to each other, and they're like growling at each other, right? And then I like how Gorse in his inner monologue is like, in mind's eye is like, this is the perfect moment. We are still bound closer than lovers because we share this one sublime splinter of time. He is orgasmic over this moment. And he, in his head, he's going on and on about it, right? We will join the Stones. Two more heroes to add to the circle, frozen in conflict. And then out of nowhere, Weirin just says, "Oh," and he kind of stops putting pressure on Gorse, and he stumbles back a little bit, and Gorse is like looking down. He's like, "What the fuck?" And he sees that he has a fucking spear in his chest. I guess somebody must have just came and said, "Fuck it," and then Weirin goes, "Wasn't expecting that," and he just collapses. George, were you gonna say something?
I find this is one of my favorite Joe twists.
Yeah.
This is, it just comes out of nowhere. Like you're expecting this absolute wonderful showdown between these two absolutely perfect fighters, and then one of them just gets stabbed by somebody else, and it's like, oh.
I can only imagine it's like somebody that's walking by those two while they're in their embrace, and it's just like, what the fink, and then
Yeah.
just keeps walking.
And I especially remember reading this for the first time and being so disappointed. But
Yeah.
that's the point. Joe
That is the
loves
point. Yeah,
disappointment.
yeah. Yeah, every time I reread it, I just love this part even more. I'm like, fuck you, Weirin lovers. Fuck you guys. I
I
win
do.
in the end.
That's what you get for not looking over your shoulder, you little shit.
I do really like in a way though how how it is a disappointing moment, but it's not just disappointing like as a reader. It's disappointing for Gorse because like he's reached his climax. He's
Yeah.
done it. He's done all this fighting. He's finally made it to the point where he's fighting someone who's worth his time and who is he's gonna take glory in this battle. He's done, and then it's over. He doesn't even get to really enjoy it, and it's just like back to the same apathetic sociopath, and even Gorse is like, oh well.
Yeah.
Afterwards, he's like,
What do
how
I expect?
disappointing.
I never get my hopes up,
Yeah, Gorse was like, he got his hopes up a little bit, but he's like, oh well, it must continue. And then he looks and he sees Craw, and he's like a step and a sword swing away. He goes, well, gotta, can't leave a job undone or whatever. And so he takes a step and he's about to swing a sword, and then his head exploded with light. And then we switch our perspective back to our boy, Red Beck, and he saw it all happen, right? He saw Craw go down, rolling in the mud, saw Droft be hacked down in turn, and saw Weirin fight that mad bull of a Union soldier, a fight that only seemed to take a few savage moments, too fast for him to follow. And then he saw Weirin fall, and then he remembered what Craw had said to him, right? How he was an example of what to do. And apparently there was enough of space where a man dropped in front of Beck where he can move now. And it's about just doing what's right, stand by your chief, keep your head. And as he sees Gorse walking towards Craw, he goes, fuck this. And he steps to Gorse from his blind side, do what's right. And at the very last second, he swings the sword. He swings the sword, and then at the last second, he turns his wrist and he hits Gorse with the flat of his sword in the side of the head and just bang. And then that was the last Beck saw of Gorse before like the surge, basically covered the bodies. Then we switch to cross perspective, but before that, Harrison, did you want to say something? Look like?
Well, I just think it like Beck whenever he goes to hit him with the sword, like I feel like in his mind he's like afraid to hurt somebody again. So like instinctually in the moment, just good at these little passive things that, sometimes he's really good at showing a person to be self-aware or not self-aware. I feel like he totally purposely turned that blade to the side and knocked him out instead because he was afraid, because he wanted to protect his chief, right? But he was afraid of, like, he didn't want to kill somebody else again. That's what I think.
Yeah, he's probably still traumatized from the ref business, I would say.
Probably.
Yeah, don't forget it was only a day ago. so, so then we're with Craw again, and some time has passed, and not really a lot of time, but just a little bit enough to know that it's getting quiet now, and he can see that the Northmen have driven the Union off the hill for the time, and he starts crawling over to where he sees Droft is laying, and he's like, Droft, are you all right? And then he looks at him and goes, the other side of his head was all hacked away. He's oh fuck, and he's shit. And then he sees Wirren, and Wirren's on his back. The father's sword's near him, the spear fucking sticking out of his chest. And Crawl goes, "Oh, what the fuck?" And Wirren says that I would get up, but I'm fucked. And then Croc he doesn't really say anything. He just says, "Yeah, it seems that way." And Wirren admits that Shoglig was talking shit. Then that old bitch didn't know when I was gonna die at all.
Shoglig was talking shit. She didn't know when I was gonna die.
Do you want to do the rest of this? You can do the rest of that. I don't mind.
It's a good monologue, George. You should go for it.
Yeah, go for it.
Oh shit! Where does it start?
Well, if I
Bury it with me.
oh no, not yet. So I'll tell you when to do it. So he jokes about how if he would have known that when he was gonna die, he would have worn more armor. And then he jokes again with Craw. He goes like, "I guess you really did show me my destiny." And Craw doesn't really know how to say. He goes, "I guess so. Looks that way." And so Wirren looks for the father's swords, and then because he says he has to pass it on. That those are the rules, like these people before him. And Crawl goes, all right, I got the sword. Here you go. Who do you want to give it to? And Wirren confirms with him that he'll do it. He's like, yep, I'll do it. And then Wirren just says, great. Put it in the ground. And then George, do you want to do it?
Bury it with me. Time thought it was a blessing and a curse, but it's only a curse. I heard about a curse some other poor bastard with it. Time thought it was a reward and punishment both. But this is the only reward for men like us.
Yep.
Nice.
Yep. Very nice. And well, yeah, Wirren's deciding to say fuck it, put it in the mud. And Crawl agrees that he will. And he says, "Do you know how bloody heavy it is?" And Crawl says, like every sword is a weight to carry. Men don't see that when they pick them up, but that they get heavier with time. And Wirren's like, "Good words. Those are great words. I really should have thought out some better words for this, but this sucks."
I hate how funny this is. Like this is like a really somber moment in this story where this guy is like having his last words, but it's just stupidly. It's so dumb.
Hey, he has
I don't think it's dumb. I think that a lot of the deaths.
I think if you've seen Platoon, it's definitely this is like that speech, isn't it? When they're like, tell my wife and kids I love them. But that kind of tone, but with much more serious kind of. Yeah,
I just feel like a lot of these moments with Joe's like, oh, this person's dying or whatever is like it does feel like this where it's a little silly. It's not like everything Joe does. Joe does a very good job at having the human experience in the moment, right? And Weird's a goofy bastard. Of course, he's saying like, I should have thought of some better words. What's wrong with me? I think it fits well. I don't think it's goofy.
Yeah.
Personally.
Well, I think it fits. He does that fits his characters, right? Like with Wirren, it is goofy because Wirren's a goofy character.
Right. So I don't feel like it's dumb. I just
no, it's goofy. It's goofy. But
I say silly, but that's just counter too.
Yeah, but then there have been moments.
It's just Joe being meta,
But Joe has done deaths for other characters, and it is really somber, and it isn't played for laughs.
Right.
You know what I mean? So.
But this is one of the reasons, Jeff, why you don't like Wirren for the best POV character, non-POV character. Sorry,
Yeah, he's not.
because he's not.
He's not.
He's pretty much he's a one-dimensional kind of.
Yeah, and
He's
we'll
set
leave it
up
at
for this joke,
yeah.
and that's it.
Exactly. Exactly. And we'll
Whereas
leave it at
Black
that.
Cow.
So go ahead and bury the father's swords and bury your goddamn cheese trap and leave him in the goddamn past. Anyway, so you know, his last words were, "What do you know? Shoglig was talking shit. Then he was still. Now your boy is dead. End of fucking chapter. Finito. Boys, what do you rate it?"
8. I'm gonna give it an 8.
I was
Not quite a 9.
I was gonna give it an 8.
Not quite a 9. I feel like at this point, because the Heroes has so many characters, I find it harder to invest in all of the individual ones. So, like in Last Argument of Kings, where you had this big battle and you knew everybody really, really well, I feel like it's not quite there, but it's still just perfect Joe action scenes, you know. So yeah, 8.
Harrison?
I think it's a good point, George. I think that I know what you mean. I think that like in a literary sense, I've always said that I think this is Joe's best book, but in terms of like emotional connection, I do feel a certain degree of that. And so it feels less like that, but it does feel like Weirin fulfills a aspect of war, which is like the hero archetype. And it's kind of turned on its head, right? Because we've seen Logan like be unkillable, you know, almost, you know, and so that kind of turns it on its head. So he is kind of subverting himself, as Joe likes to do. But I always feel like yes, it fits and it works, but at the same time, on purpose, I don't care as well. So I kind of understand that. As the overall chapter, I feel like I'm gonna give it a 6 and a knuckle. I like it, as always. It's actiony. It's got some really cool moments of Jallenhorn and Blacked Out, but you guys know how I am. I'm not a big fan of the action chapters as much as I am some other kinds of chapters. So I'm 6 and a knuckle for me.
Well, I already said I was going to give it an 8, and I'm going to stick to it. You know, I enjoyed this chapter. You know, we have Jallenhorn being redeemed, right? And you know, you know, if you imagine somebody that would be what have you been an excellent lieutenant or something like that or
Yeah, I think
something like
an excellent lieutenant.
an excellent lieutenant, right? Somebody like that, you know, they would be competent in the battlefield. They would be a decent fighter because they're on the battlefield. They're not in the back, right? They're not giving orders like that. They're not commanding the battlefield on a grand strategy sense. And to see him, you know, despite the absurd armor that he was wearing, to fucking make it up to the hill, charge ahead of Gorst. You know, he got ahead of Gorst, who, you know, we from the last episode, the dude was horny to keep pushing. You remember, and Jallenhorn was able to do that. You know, bring Blacked Out to his knees, not for a blowjob, but and then you know, be.
I'm glad you made the
redeemed.
distinction, Jeffrey. I wouldn't have known otherwise.
Yeah, thanks for that.
Yeah, you're welcome. You're welcome. And you know, was redeemed in death and smiled, and then Gorse, like Gorse, for all of this entire book, this guy was like, this guy sucks. That person sucks. Hate this guy. Little man, small man. You know, how just how nihilistic and how much of a misandrist he was. He really did like Jallenhorn, right? And he tried to all he can do to save him, but he couldn't get there in time. Then we had quick succession of Jallenhorn dying, Droth dying, and Weirin dying, right? And then in between we had Craw almost dying. Gorst, we don't know what happens to him. Fucking even Dow almost was like, you know, caught off guard. So it was one of those back and forth chapters that works really well with Joe's writing style, and so I'll give it an 8. Oh, and you know, Weirin dying made it even that much better for me. So.
I'm glad you made that distinction.
Yeah, just wanted to make sure that you know I make it clear that Weirin is dead, and he died in a fight. Unlike, I'm not going to say it. Anyway, we'll move on to our next segment, which is our community interaction segment. Boys, what do we want to talk about and highlight this week?
Yeah, we were going to mention it last week, so maybe slightly late news to some of you, if you guys keep up with it. But we are not only fans of the First Law, but fans of Joe Abercrombie in general, even though the majority of his work is First Law work.
I thought you said we have an OnlyFans. I was like, wait, what? Who has an OnlyFans? Sorry.
My God, Jeffrey, you are quite horny this evening. Joe's next book is called The Devils, as many of you know, and it's coming out here in May. Some pre-orders and stuff are available. And Joe's pretty excited for this. He's got some artists and stuff creating these. What did you call it earlier, George? What kind of style paintings are they? And art?
Well, like kind of like ecclesiastical.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, ecclesiastical, and it's a very unique style. It feels very Joe-like. The style fits very well, and it's cool to see that even though Joe isn't as much into like the extra stuff, like it seems like in the beginning he was very much just into like his characters, his story, like in the moment. He seems like he's branching out a little bit and be like, check out this art, and it's cool. It's really good art. So go check out the art. Maybe pre-order some of the books. We're not going to because we're poor. And whenever it comes out, we'll read it, and we're definitely gonna be going over it. So,
Well, I might go into a signing because I live in the same country.
and
so-
if George does do that, if George is able to go do the signing, then
I'll definitely freeze up and not be able to say anything about the podcast.
you
Don't
just say,
tip him off, boys. Don't tip him
Nice
off.
to meet you.
okay, he's listening. He's listening.
All right.
What if you get there, George, and he's like, "I knew you were coming, George. It's okay."
Just
Look
say
me
you're
right in the eyes, like I know who you are.
you're like shaking. You like he signs it and he writes something else. You open the book and he's like, he says 9 out of 9. You're like, oh!
or oh, 9 out of 9 is great. That's why George has to go in and say his name's Greg or something.
I'm undercover, I'm incognito. Fuck.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Oh dear.
Anyway,
that was the end of the community interaction.
I do want to point something out because I literally just thought about it, right? I don't know why, but I just want to say, rest in peace to one of my favorite actors, Gene Hackman, who I think, if he was bald and a little younger, would have made a great Baez. That dude is intense. That dude was intense. So,
yeah,
rest
that's
in
pretty
peace.
sad. I heard it was carbon monoxide, right?
Oh, we have no idea now. I don't know. He died, his wife, and the dog. I don't know what the fuck happened. I mean,
Jesus.
I don't. Yeah, so I don't know. Anyway, just wanted to say rest in peace, my fan-casted Baez. That's all. Anyway, God damn it, French connection. Anyway, so let's move on to our next chapter read-through, which would be Points in Metal. And we are looking at this from the perspective of our boy Calder, and he is not, let's say, as thrilled as he was in our previous episode, where he was feeling himself with his shenanigans, the stolen standards, the peeing on them, the dugout ditches and trenches that the cavalry, heedlessly charged into. No, as we left off last time, Calder saw that the Union are now their infantry's marching, and these are the blocks of pikemen, just heavy infantry. And he's like, "Oh, there's no trickery here. Whoopsies." And so now him and his men are in the thick of it, fighting against these soldiers. He doesn't know where Wide Eye is. He doesn't know where Pale as Snow is. They could be dead for all he knows because they're fighting with even wounded men at this point. Just trying to keep the line, held. And then he sees that there's a Union officer at some point, who was not far from him at all. It was on his left. At some point, to Calder's left, the men have broken through, the Union men, and so Union officer tries to attack Calder. Calder kind of blocks his sword a little bit, for all that he was trained as a kid, but he's a shitty fighter. I'll tell you that right now, because he just trips over the piss-soaked standards, and he's like, "Fuck!" and then as the officer's about to stab him, he must have got cut because he falls to his knees, not for a blowjob, and then his head comes off, and who killed the officer? Well, none other than Broad Tenways, who was like, I thought I might help you out, couldn't leave you to
It's like
snatch.
Gandalf in Helm's Deep. It's like, oh, I'm here. I'm saved the day.
Perfect. Yes, Tinways, the equivalent of Gandalf.
Yes, yes, with some fucked up teeth.
He's like,
and
look at my teeth on the, on the desk of the third day.
Look
Yeah.
to the west of the door. Yeah, exactly.
And then
Oh,
I
God.
like how Calder says to him, right? He goes, I have half of mine to tell you to get fucked. And then Tenway says, what about the other half? And Calder says, shitting itself. And Tenways he smiles at him. He goes, might be the first honest thing I've ever heard you say. And then and then Calder goes, probably that's fair. And then Tenways goes, all right, well, are you coming? When he's talking about like the other, to get back into the battle. And Calder's like, damn right I am. And then he lets Tenways goes a little bit, and then he fakes like a pain in his knee. He's like, shit, I'll catch up with you later. And then Tenways is like, of course, why wouldn't you catch up with me? All right, you bastards. He's talking to his men, and he's like, with me. And then they go charge towards the gap in the lines. And so he goes, he doesn't know if like maybe this will turn the tide in favor of the Northmen, or maybe the Union will have more soldiers to reinforce them. I'm not so sure. And what he's doing is he's looking down, he's wondering about those bastards beyond the stream. How long would they just sit still? Dun dun dun. And that's the end of that chapter. Georgie boy, how would you rate it?
I love how Calder, like, he thought he was going to change a bit there. He was going to become more conscientious and more brave, and then he just goes, "No, actually, I might just fake this knee injury so I can not fight anymore, please."
He didn't even fight at all. That's the thing.
No, he was poking. He was poking with the sword. Like that,
That's right.
you know.
That's right.
He was
Jabbing.
poking with the sword, and that was it. But Calder remains a coward. I love the fact that he remains a coward because it works for him. I'm gonna give this one a 5 just because it's short, but I do love Calder's fucking shenanigans in this.
Okay, Harrison, how do you rate this chapter?
It is very short, but it is very, very Calder-esque. It's he is such a coward. It's I like how consistent it is. Like the typical plot of these kinds of stories is like he's like, all right, I've now I've saved my men and I fought my good fight. It's time to be a man and charge into battle with these guys. And he just is like, no, my ankle. Oh, it's great. I like that a lot. So I think I'm gonna call it honestly a 6 and a knucklegan. I like that. I like it's consistently for his character. I really like it a lot, actually.
I mean, I enjoy it. It's it's just a really short chapter. It's cool to get like a pleasant surprise of Tenways coming to his rescue, and Calder still being like and being honest with him. He's like, yeah, shitting myself and everything, and then the fake injury. But I'll give it a 4 just because it's so short, and
Yeah.
nothing groundbreaking happened except for Tenways saving Calder. That's that. We'll move on to our next segment, which is our best meme of the week. Georgie boy, that's you. Take it away.
So this week we have Crate to Bigfoots, who I think we've had before for meme of the week,
Sounds
Yeah.
familiar.
roughly 20 weeks ago, if I remember correctly.
Roughly 20 weeks ago.
So I'm
Oh, why
British. We do Imperial time.
Imperial.
I'm joking.
You are very British.
So apparently this is Taylor Swift. My good friend Jeffrey here has told me this is Taylor Swift. This meme.
Yeah, because she's on all the football games. Yep.
Is that how you know her?
Well, no, because she's one of the most popular people on the fucking planet.
I'm so glad that I don't watch TV.
There you go.
Anyway, so it's somebody looking at the camera and then, well, this is awkward and this is good. Incest is in Best Served Cold and then incest in Little Hatred. Because It's just a little bit. It's a little bit more acceptable when they don't know about it.
I don't think so, but okay.
No. I think he's right. Hang on.
What?
Hang on. Wait,
Well,
no, let's do an experiment.
No, if they do
gonna
not
do an
know about
experiment.
it,
that's true.
We're
They
gonna
do
do
not.
it.
That's true. They do not know
Jeffrey,
about.
let me put it into your let me take out the family context, Jeffrey. You meet a fine young lady.
We should say something. We should say something. Spoilers for Little Hatred, folks. Anyway, continue.
we've never done spoilers for any of this shit.
Yes, we have.
No, we did for like 2 episodes, and that was it.
My
Goodbye,
God.
spoilers.
We have whole
Anyways.
episodes about spoilers. God damn it, George.
Jeffrey,
Go ahead, Harrison. Go ahead.
you meet a fine young lady. She's perfect. You connect with her. You almost feel like you have this other connection. Like, how could this be? You know, you start doing the devil's tango and X, Y, Z. You're seeing her for about 3 to 6 months. Everything's going great. You're thinking about taking it to the next step, and then you you get your ancestry.com fucking results back, and you're like, oh shit, we're related. And then you ask your mom, and your mom's like, oh yeah, about that. Sorry, I didn't realize that was the girl you were dating. I would have told you sooner. Then you had to drop it, right? Which is similar to what happens in the future, right?
Yeah.
Not
that
that
is completely
uncommon. That does
different.
happen.
That is completely different than raising
Banging
your
your
younger
fucking twin
brother,
brother.
your younger brother that's 5 to 6 years younger than you, raising him with you, and then fucking him. That is completely different.
That is, you're right. All right, fine. I mean, still terrible on both.
But the meme is hilarious.
The meme is funny. The meme is
It's very accurate. Everybody is like, oh, this is
Thank
okay.
you. Thank you very much for that meme, Creator Bigfoot.
Here at Circle Lore Podcast, we do not condone incest.
Yeah,
No.
we do not.
Don't do it.
Incest is an abomination.
Stop. Don't do it. When you gonna come to it?
Our community relations officer, ladies and gentlemen, Georgie.
You know like my singing. I'm sorry.
To talk about the pitfalls of porking your relatives. Anyway,
your children will have diseases.
Oh, Jesus. Anyway, let's talk about our third and final chapter read through. Let's move on to that, which is Peace in Our Time. And we are back with our girl Finri. We last left her when she was like, "Smile, Lord Baez, you look miserable." And now she's with her pops, and his staff. They're walking through the chaos and carnage of the battle. Excuse me. And he looks, they're looking around, and then they see Gorst. And Gorst is like, "Lord Marshal." And Gorst is there a little unsteady. He has a big-ass bandage on his head. And he has a cut on his eye. He's all bloodied up. And Finry's like, "Oh, geez." And his other eye's bruised. And Lord Marshal Croy asks Gorst, like, "Well, what happened here, folks?" And Gorst is like, "We attacked. We lost." and then, confirms that the Northmen still hold the heroes and inquires about General Jallenhorn, who Gorst confirms is dead. Colonel Winkler, dead. And so he asks who's in command, and Gorst is just quiet because, he doesn't know who's command, right? At this point. And then Baez, he's still on his horse, didn't bother to dismount, and he's like, "Marshal Croy, a minor reverse, but reinforcements are arriving all the time, and the weather is clearing. Might I suggest you reorganize and prepare your men for another attack? It would appear that General Jallenhorn made it all the way up to the heroes, so a second effort just might." And
No.
Croy just says no. And then Baez kind of just like, "Huh?" And he goes, "No." And then Croy just says no. And then he looks to his lieutenant, his standard bearer, and he goes, "Do you have a flag of parley?" And the standard bearer kind of looks at Baez, is like, And he looks at Marshal Croy. He's like, "Yes, Lord Marshal." And he goes, "Great. Attach it to your flagstaff. Ride carefully up to the heroes and see if the Northmen will be able to talk to us." And then Gorst, he tries to go up to Croy, and he's like, "Lord Marshal, with another effort, I think..." And Croy just cuts him off. He goes, "You are the king's observer. Observe." And that's it. And I was like, "Oh, shit." And then Baez is watching, and he is not so happy right here. And he tells Croy that His Majesty will be greatly dismayed. He expects every man to do his duty. And Croy stands before Baez and his horse, and he can, like Harrison had said before we started recording, that Baez's couple of things are his magic systems or his magic abilities is fire and force of will. And that force of will is emanating and washing over Croy right now. And Croy is standing before him and he says, "My duty is to care for the lives of these men. I simply cannot countenance another attack, not while I am in command." And Baez like, "Oh, well, how long do you think that's going to be?" And then he goes, "Long enough." And he tells the standard bearer to go. And Baez, he goes, I earnestly hope that you have weighed the consequences." And Croy just interrupts him again. And he's like, "I have weighed them and I am content." And, and Finri can see that his hand is trembling, but his eyes are narrowed like he's facing a great wind, but his voice is calm and measured. He says that he suspects his great regret will be that he allowed things to go so far. And then Baez is,
I just want to say, before you go on, we're going to talk about Croy in a bit, but I love how Croy is just willing to sacrifice his ego. This is the only thing that he has to lose here.
I don't think he's just sacrificing his ego. I think he could be.
I think the whole thing. What I mean is, the whole thing is a metaphor. But you know what?
Right. No, I hear what you're saying. Oh, weren't you going to say something else?
Nope. You go.
I really like how, like, I feel like a lot of people don't think about this. Like, as soon as I read this and I think about how Baez's his abilities is force of will and fire and all that stuff, right? Like, people have talked about whenever they're pressing on him, like Baez is pressing on them, like with Giselle and Logan later on too, how they can like feel like they just want to like give in and give up and be done, and it takes a lot of willpower to not back down from that. And Croy, I know what George was saying. He does it in front of everybody. He's not backing down. Like the lieutenant is like looking at Baez like, isn't he in charge? And I think I think it's so badass that he's just like, no, we're not doing this. And Baez is like, you little bitch. And he's like, I'm not a bitch, you're a bitch. And he's like, how dare you? it's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, after he says about the thing about his greatest regret so far, Baez retorts that like a man can have greater regrets than that, Lord Marshal. And I feel like he's about to like threaten to like, snap. But but then we hear somebody say, "If I may," and it is Yoru Sulfur. Finri knows that he is, he's walking all joyfully, just striding jauntily. That were the exact words. But that she knows that he was wet through and through, as if he had swum a river, dirt caked as if he walked through a bog, but no discomfort whatsoever. And he, Baez leaned down and Yoru whispered into his ear. And so Baez's frown slowly faded. He goes, "Okay, all right." And then he just shrugs. He goes, "Very well, Lord Marshal Croy, yours is the command." Croy turns away and is like, I need a translator. Don't really have anybody. The Dogman and his Northmen were around, but can't find them now. And Gore says that he has a smattering of Northern, but Croy can't risk that because mistranslations are possible in that sense. So
I like that little detail. That's a nice little one throwaway line detail that's really good to include.
No, absolutely.
It gets lost in translation.
And considering I work in languages, it's very, very true.
Kingdoms have little minor slip of
Kingdoms have fallen off one goddamn line. Anyway, and Finri, says it should be her because she spoke with Black Dahlia only yesterday. He knows her. He offered her terms. She's best suited. It should be her. Boom, easy peasy, lemon squeezy. And Gorse decides that he will accompany the two of them. He borrows Colonel Felnig's sword, and they start marching up there. And as they set off, Finri notes that even if like there's a moment where Croy had slipped, but he's fine. He's just walking up. She goes, she's always been proud of her father, of course, but she did not think she had ever been so proud of him as she was at that moment, proud and sad all at once right after he confronted Baez. Then we switch perspectives again, and now we're with Crawl, and again we're at the same time period. And Wonderful had just finished stitching Crawl's face, because now she's the surgeon. Because before, I guess Wirren was the one that did all the stitches,
Mhm.
Yes.
and she's not as good as Wirren apparently. But who as good as Wirren in anything that he does? Anyway,
He was an artist.
First the cheese trap, then the stitches.
yeah,
A great
so-
loss to the Northmen.
He was an artist with the sword, the needle, and the cheese knife.
She's nice. All right, well, I'm good.
Any pointed metal?
I'm good. Anyway, so Crawl, after his stitches are done, he confirms with Jolyon that he's okay, and he walks over to Dow and he goes, "Are they coming again?" And Dow's smiling. He goes, "In a manner of speaking." He's all coy about it, and he sees that 3 people are walking up, and they reckon they want to talk. So Dow tosses his axe to Shivers, and it's just Crawl and him. They walk down. And when he gets down there, he sees that it's at least one of them is the lady from the day before, and then the other person was the big Union man who nearly killed him. He's like, "Oh shit, oh Jesus Christ!" And he sees that this old man is the other guy is Croy, obviously, and he notes that clean shaven, short gray hair, sharp look, like he missed nothing. Dun dun dun. And so they're not too far from each other. They're within a couple paces. And Dow goes, "Well, well, well. Never expected to be seeing you again so soon." And he makes a joke. He's like, "Do you want to hold me?" And she goes, Henry's like, "No." And she goes, "This is my father, Lord Marshal Croy, commander of His Majesty's army." And Dow just interrupts her. He goes, I guess. And you lied. And she goes, "You lied? What do you mean I lied?" And he goes, "Well, you said that he's taller or whatever." And Dow goes, "Nah, he's shorter than me, or he looks like it from where I'm standing anyway." Anyway,
What's
so what
great
can
is
I do?
that was on a hill.
I know.
It's so funny.
It's on
I
an
love the fact.
But I love that. Isn't that just a little bit of Logan there? Make yourself look less than you are. So make yourself look stupid.
I do
Yeah.
think that Black Dowd does act like a buffoon because that threw people off. But I think it's more to show in this instance
Mhm.
that he is like I think he purposely acts aloof. I guess it's
Mhm.
kind of what you mean, George, right? Like he's acting aloof to seem like he's
Aloof.
not really, purposely aloof, which he's
Yeah.
always done. Though he's always been like,
Right.
oh, haha, fucking
Because
Bell.
because if,
Waste of fucking bell.
because if you're acting aloof in like negotiations, you at the very least you're not going to negotiate from a place of weakness, right? Even if you really are in a place of weakness, but
Which they are, which we know they are.
well, in the sense that the Union have more men, but the Union they've been struggling. They've been struggling
Yeah,
in this
but
battle.
the only thing that's holding the Union back is Croy's conscience.
Possibly, yeah, very much, very much.
You mean from attacking?
Yep.
Or
Yeah, attacking, but do we know that means is it successful? We don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, but they could literally throw away 10,000 men and still win, quote unquote.
Quote unquote. Yeah, possibly. So anyway, he goes, "What can I do for you?" And Finnery says that my father would like to end the fighting. And Cross says, and he felt such a sense of relief, he was about to go to his knees, not for a blowjob. And then he says, and then, and then Dow says, "Well, we could have done that yesterday when I actually offered you, giving us a lot, less digging to do." And Finnery says, "Well, he's offering now." And Dow looks at Crawl, and Crawl just says, "Well, better late than never, kind of thing." And he goes, "All right. Well, I can't say I wanted any of this in the first place. There's people of my own that I could be killing instead of wasting my sweat on you bastards." Which is like, you should be wanting to kill people that are not yours. What if you had to kill somebody? But whatever. Anyway.
I feel like, but that's totally the blacked out thing, right? Like he's like I'm barely holding my realm together, in his way. I think it is a subtle way of him saying like I'm barely holding my own shit together. I could be like dealing with all this inter stuff, and I can't because I have to focus on you, in like a roundabout way. I mean,
Yeah. Yeah. So she basically she's translating that he's cool with it, and she says that her father's relieved. He's like, "Yep, great. Well, I got a few things to clean up before we get all the details hammered out. So, and I expect you do too. So we'll talk tomorrow. Let's say after lunch." And so they, she's translating, and then him and Crawl are looking at Gorst, and he just says it. Dal just says, he goes, "Hey, that guy right there, that's a right fucking killer." And Finnery looks at Gorst, he goes, well, he is the king's watcher, whatever." And Dal's like, "He did more than fucking watching today. He's got a devil in him, and I mean that as a compliment." He says that if he was a Northman.
I fucking love this for Ghost.
Right, because this has got to be such like a big confidence booster for him. Right?
Man, I would read this book if Ghost goes to the north and just like a what if.
Yeah,
Just being a dick, everybody.
Yeah,
yeah,
Starts
because
going Logan on everyone.
yeah, because he says a man like him could do well on this side, and that if he was a Northman, he'd be in all the songs. Shit, he might be a king instead of just watching one. And then he smiles his killing smile, and he says, "Ask him if he wants to work for me," which is like, oh shit. And then Finnery, I guess, goes to open him, to say something, but then Gorst
I'm happy where I am.
and Northern, obviously.
Oh, so sorry.
Although that would be a fun what if, right? If he joins him, would Black Tao even get defeated because Gorst would just follow his orders instead for a time? It wouldn't take much. He's already on the verge of quitting. I'm just saying that would be pretty crazy. And no one would fuck with Gorst either. He'd fuck everybody up. So, especially now that Weird's gone.
But it'd be so funny though, because he still think everybody hated him, even when he was like the king. He'd be like, everybody hates me because my voice is funny.
And nobody wants to fuck me. Nobody wants to suck my dick. Everyone thinks
They're all pretending to like me.
Yeah.
They
love me because I am the epitome of a Northman, stuck in this frail, puny, womanly voice buddy.
If only my father could see me now. King of the Northmen, king of dirt, king of nothing.
He still wouldn't hug me.
All right, I'm sorry. Hold on. So Dal goes, "Okay, all right, you're happy. That's great. That's great." And then Finnery goes, "Well, what about my friend, the one that was captured with me?" And Dal goes, "Oh my God, you don't give up, do you?" He goes, like, "Do you really think?" And he says something that's pretty like, "Oosh." He goes, "Do you really think anyone will want her back now?" And she looks right at him. She goes, "I want her back. Didn't I get you what you asked for?" And he goes, "Too late for some, but that's war, huh? There have to be losers." So it might be, and then he tries to change the topic. He goes, it might be an idea to send some messengers, let everyone know they can all stop fighting and have a big sing-song. Be ashamed to carry on butchering each other for nothing.
Do you guys think that he said that to be? I feel like Black Yao said that in a way to be like, listen, like you at this point, like even if I could get her back, it's not going to be good either way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like he wasn't doing it to be a dick. I don't think, honestly. Like, I'm not saying what he said wasn't fucked up. I'm saying like I don't.
We've heard Black Dao say plenty of indefensible things.
Yeah,
this isn't that far.
Yeah,
right.
But I think I know what you're saying, but where it's more of a sort of male chauvinist angle to it, where it's like, well, if she's been interfered with, then she's not as valuable anymore. Whatever. That's kind of what the angle that he's going for, I think, here.
Really, I think I think to a degree that is the case, but I think it's also a level of like her state of mind is going to be so messed up at this point that she's not salvageable, and like in Black Dao's mind, like she's not, you know what I mean? Like she can't be saved at this point in his mind. Yes. I see
what you're saying.
And again, poor Elise.
Yeah.
We were drinking toast for you, Elise.
Yeah.
Damn.
Oh, Elise. And then Finnery says that, Croy would like to recover their dead. But Dow's already walking away, goes, get them tomorrow. They're not going to run off. It's like, Jesus Christ, Dow. And that's it. And then we switch perspectives to Finnery. And when she goes, well, I guess that's it, And then and Croy says, well, peace is always an anticlimax, but no less desirable. So they both start walking back towards the children. And Finnery notes that it's a throwaway conversation, couple of bad jokes that half of the people there couldn't understand, and it was done. That's it. The battle's over. It's weird. It's like, could they have had that conversation at the start, and would all of these men that did die would still be alive, right, or have their limbs?
Yes.
Yes, but Baez said no, so we got to do it. And I love how I always talk about this, but I think Baez is just a stand-in for like big money in the world.
Oh yeah, probably for sure. Yeah, the capitalist machine.
Yeah, exactly.
Which funny enough. Which is funny enough because we're at the end of the day we are capitalists, but whatever. But
you gotta
big
go
money,
and blow each other up because otherwise the missile manufacturers don't make their money.
Yeah, he's like the George Hurst of fantasy. Another Deadwood reference. If anyone did not catch that, watch Deadwood. Anyway, so as she's.
Not right now, Jeffrey. You're gonna attack him later.
We'll talk about it later. I'm sorry.
Cease your aggression, Jeffrey. No, it's not the time.
Anyway.
George, cut that out.
No, don't cut it out. Leave it in. As they're walking back, thunder rolled across the field. Very, very loud, terribly frightening loud. And for a moment, she was like, "Did lightning strike the heroes? What the fuck?" And then she realized that she saw a ball of fire coming up from Ostrong, and it was so big that she could feel kind of like the heat, or she at least imagined she could feel the heat on her face. And then, excuse me, and then she could see that specks of things are flying from it, and she realizes it's pieces of buildings, beams, blocks, men, and then the great big plume of smoke. Black smoke shot up after it. And then she realizes, oh, fuck, her husband. How? And she takes off running. And she's like, and then Croy's like, Finry! And then Gorse is like, I'll accompany her. And then he starts running. And she's just running as fast as she can. And then we switch perspective back to Craw, and he goes, what the hell is going on? And he sees a column of smoke and everything. And then Dow goes, oh, oops, shit, that's Ishri's surprise. Ooh, bad timing.
He is so funny when he talks like that. I mean, it's so fucked up again, but like, that's so.
Yeah.
I like how it wasn't stopped. Like the idea that they're like, we better stop fighting, and we better let everybody know that we should stop fighting. And
that's what he said he was going to do. He's going to send messengers, but I mean, this isn't the age of instant communication. This is got to go find the guy and send the message.
I just like that. I like that reminder.
But I love the point. He's probably calculated that where he's like, well, it's gonna go off anyway, so I might as well ask for forgiveness.
I legit think Dow just forgot.
I think he did too.
No, I don't think he did. I think he's just like.
I think he forgot.
I think he'd rather just go, "Oh shit, sorry," than explain it beforehand.
Well, no, but I'm saying, like, think about it. Why would he have to explain beforehand if he just tells them? And if, like, okay, I think.
No, I mean, like, I'm talking maliciously. Like, he's like, I'm just gonna blow these people up and go, oh, sorry.
I don't think so. No, I don't think so. But I do think.
I reckon Dow is definitely a little bit malicious, right?
Yeah, but I'm saying I don't think he would have done it like now. Like, oh, if we're talking about peace, then like, why would I even risk blowing up the peace talks, right? I think he's not going to lose sleep over it because he does have the caveat of like, well, we just talked about, and we have to send messengers. But I don't think it was a malicious intent.
I think that if he would have said a little late, Ishri, then it would have been like he was hoping that it would have happened. Right. But since he was like, ooh. Oh,
he's like shit, and he says shitty timing for all concerned.
Because he's talking to Crawl, right? He's not talking to.
Yeah.
But
and then
it's still pretty like it's funny, but I can also can you imagine you hear in the background, I still got it.
Like over the wind.
Over the wind. There was a faint voice on the wind. It's like in Lord of the Rings. Faint voice on the wind. I still got it.
That's so fucking stupid. I love it.
It is pretty badass, I will say. Like the fact that Ishri this fucking like fire tornado out of the Bible, like And it's like, dude, that would have been. It's also cool too. Like Joe, as always, like plays it out like not like you're expecting. Like he played it up like Ishri's got a trick, and ooh, look at that storm cloud over there. Oh, that seems a little unusual. But then it rains. You're like, okay,
Hey,
and
well,
then you're like, it would have been so effective. But because it was after the peace talks, it was basically pointless, utterly, like just completely useless slaughter. And also,
Like, the fucking wild card is completely useless.
yes,
love
that's
it.
what I mean. Yes, but the thing I saw well too, like the fact that they show this, it shows one that it takes time for very powerful magic users to be able to do this too. I bet Bias could do this if he wanted to, and easier. And number three, I like this show that I really think it's cool that like we got the cannons on one side and the more modern civilization, and then we have the full-on magic fire tornado on
well,
the other.
I think this is Gurkish powder.
No, I
This
think
is an
yeah,
explosion.
that fire tornadoes do form naturally when you have a large explosion.
That's a
Right,
good
but
point,
this,
I guess. I
but
just felt like she did it because she formed it. But maybe I'm wrong.
I'm sure she thinks that as
wait,
well.
I don't. Wait, hold on. Why? I'm just confused. Why are you guys saying fire tornado? It's an explosion, big bloom, a big ball of fire,
I
and then
know. It just
and then
is
a
like a big
column of smoke.
pillar, right?
Yeah, that's it.
I
It's
just
an
like to think
explosion.
it's moving.
It's clearly an explosion, but Finnery doesn't have the word, which I like how Joe writes for,
Oh, that's
for
a
his
good.
characters.
You know, Jeffrey,
You know what I
I
mean?
didn't think about it that way. I was thinking of it in my own
Then
modern
again,
terms.
do you
Right,
think they have
yeah.
tornadoes in Midland?
Okay, but this is not a tornado, is what I'm saying.
Oh,
This is an
but
How
explosion.
did she
but
have
Finnery
that
does-
frame of reference? How does she know what a tornado is?
Oh my god, it's like the cuckoo thing.
Oh
She
my
knows what a
God.
tornado is.
This is not about. She knows what a goddamn tornado is, most likely. But I'm
Okay.
saying this is an explosion. This is
Okay,
an
okay,
explosion.
Jeffrey, all right,
Jesus,
you're right.
Jesus. All right. Now back to the goddamn chapter. Dow says to Crawl, he goes, "Well, you couldn't call it a." He just completely disregards the explosion or fire tornado. He completely disregards it, and he goes, "Well, you couldn't call it a win exactly, but not a bad result, all in all. All right, send somebody to Ricci to tell him to put his weapons down. 10 ways and Calder too, if they're still at it. And then I think at the hearing his name again, hearing that name, Cross, he stops walking and he says, Chief. And he thinks to himself, a man has to do the right thing, stand by his chief, whatever his feelings. They say an old horse can't jump new fences. And Dow looks at him and he's smiling, but his smile fades when he sees Craw's face. And he's like, what the fuck you frowning about? And then Craw's the last line of this chapter says, there's something I need to tell you.
He's going to betray Calder, the bastard.
No, I don't know. I don't know if he's going to betray Calder because Calder did it to himself, if that's the case.
Yeah, but Calder's right.
What? No, he's
Ooh,
wrong.
Hang on, I'm curious.
Calder's into
It-
peace. Let's go
We
for
can't
peace,
talk.
eh?
Wait, no. Huh?
Peace.
Yeah, well. So
That's
Dow
not really why Calder's after it, though, is it, George? Calder doesn't actually want peace. He wants to, create
That
discourse.
sounds like misinformation to me.
Oh, George he's doing it. False flag. I see it. I see you. Anyway, that's the end of that chapter, boys. How do you rate it?
I fucking love this chapter.
It's a good one.
I love towards the end of this book, it really starts to pick up. Apart from the multiple POV chapters, this is probably one of my favorites. I fucking love the interactions when they actually talk face to face, Croy and Black Dow. Well, not face to face because they're translating, but
They actually are face to face, George. You're right.
I love the way he writes these chapters, and I think I'm gonna give it a 8 and a knuckle.
Ooh, nice. Harrison?
I'm gonna go the same 8 and knuckle. The same kind of reason. It's written really, really well. It's really cool to see these inner character relationships and personalities come out that Joe's so good at writing. And we've seen like people on their own side, but whenever we start getting across different groups of people, there's a lot going on in the chapter, despite it not being an action chapter. Obviously at the end we have the thing with Ishri doing some Gurkha shit over there, and Osrung. We have like this tension that that we almost forgot about with Craw because we were still stuck in the moment. He was too, and then it's calmed down. And he mentioned it, and as you progress backwards, it there's all these moments between Baez and Croy and Finry and Black Dow with Croy and Gorse with Black Dow and Gorse with Craw and you know there's all these details for how they're interacting with each other, and you know there are these sad moments. It has everything you want in a chapter basically. It's got these high moments and these low moments where you feel like, yeah, Croy, look at him standing up for himself, but then you know he falls down on the grass and he seems old and weak, and you feel the same thing Finry feels, which is like you're proud, but like it's just heartbreaking to see that like this is it. That's all he's got, you know, and but he does still do it anyways. And Black now, who acts like he's all tough and stuff, but he's still like, yeah. We'll take peace.
I just want to say for Croy as well, like lots of people can see that in a family member that has spent their entire life working, and it's just, you know, there's
I mean,
nothing
not
left.
even it's almost too weird too. Like with, you know, with even your parents and stuff, you know, if you don't see them for a while, you see them again, it's like it always bothers me seeing like for example, my mom's hands look really old and they look like old people hands now, even though, you know, she's not even that old yet. So that kind of stuff that always impacts me quite a bit, and that's the whole chapter's done really well. So eight and a knuckle. It's not. So I don't think it's one of the best chapters ever, but I think it's got everything that makes a chapter good.
Well, this is a short chapter, but
Fuck you, Jeffrey.
It's not that short. What are you talking about? It's a good sized chapter.
it's a short chapter. But I will say this: this is one of those chapters where I think Joe is in rare form, and you guys have kind of talked about it, where he has it's a short chapter, but yet he's managed to pack basically everything into it.
Yeah.
Like Harrison was talking about the highs and the lows. We get humor, we get tragedy, we get apprehension with, you know, what's Craw gonna say. We get a sense of foreboding with the explosion and Hal, and Finry is now in fear of his, you know, what happened with Hal. All this stuff, and like you had mentioned, like each interaction that Dow has with each person is fantastic. And then obviously when we see Croy sticking up for himself, you know, against Baez and standing in the face of, you know, that sheer will, that sheer force of will, and standing up for it, standing up, you know, against it, and not, you know, backing down, and, you know, sticking to his decision, knowing that there's probably going to be long-term consequences after this. Finry kind of being proud of her father because, you know, prior to this, even though she saw instances of her father, you know, being a good military leader, but also saw signs of him being like, oh God, I lost 1,000 men today, or he looked haggard. No, this one, in this chapter, she's just proud of her dad. I'm gonna give this an 8 and a knuckle, make it a trifecta.
Hey.
You're welcome, boys. You are welcome.
You're absolutely right there, Jeff. There's so many emotional little details in this chapter. I can't even begin to cover it, and I won't try.
Well, you did earlier, and you did great. So
You did
great. But we will move on to our final segment, which is our character spot. Boys, who are we highlighting and spotlighting today?
Lord Marsha Croy.
Who else?
He is so badass for standing up to Baez. He is one of the few people who are able to do it, and successfully, to be just totally just be like, fuck you, Baez. And Baez is like, I'll sack you. I'll do it. And he's like, I don't give a shit. I've already regretting what I'm doing. This has gone on too long. I am done dealing with this. This is what we're doing. We're making peace right now. I don't give a shit. And despite Baez's powers and abilities, and on top of that, he's a great father. He is actually a pretty damn good military leader, better than a lot of them out there. He gives a shit. He has this arc through the whole series of books that he's been in so far, where he has slowly become, at least from our point of view, a more genuine, like, he went from being just a hard ass who obviously has a heart to being somebody who is more in touch with who he actually is and who he wants to be. And it's like at the end of his life, he finally decides that he's not going to put his career first. He's going to do the right thing. And hardly anybody does that in the whole series. and that's really really cool to see. And
Mhm.
I think
Yeah.
I think it's done. And for somebody we only get like one half barely POV of,
I-
it's so incredible.
And I love the fact that we develop this from, we first see this from West's perspective, where he's just this stuck up, fucking, by the book kind of guy. And we see him develop from that. And then we see his perspective later. And we get this one little tiny chapter, and that's it. But
Are you
you
talking
can
about the
still,
POV?
yeah, the little tiny POV that we get in the last chapter, one of the last chapters. But
Mhm.
we just get such a sense of him straight away that he cares so much about people that it's weird, isn't it? He's such a good character.
Well, you know what it is. This is the first book where he's actually a fleshed out character. You have to remember before they're hanged in the Last Argument King.
That's what I mean.
he's
But we just saw him
yeah.
from West's perspective. He's just
Right,
all stuck up, and it's like we see it from the kind of comedic angle as well, because he's trying to kind of play a boulder.
Yep. Mhm.
He's like, oh, Croy raised his chin a regulation inch as a
Yeah,
reaction, and that's kind of the character that we get.
Right. And then you did see some growth at the end of Last Argument Kings, but yeah, no, this is what I see what you mean, and it's this is the culmination. This is the moment where it's his shining moment. Obviously, as a wartime leader, as a a military leader, highest in the land, is suing for peace, which is great.
Against the orders as well.
Yeah, against orders, against Baez's will. So, yeah, gotta throw respect to the man, Lord Marshal Croy. I will say, I did suggest we, talk about Droft, but I was shouted.
Who was that?
Who's that?
But yeah, Croy is obviously the better choice here.
Droft
Well-
had a feel of another warrior's weapon, and then got his head
Oh.
splattered open.
But not the gay kind. Not the gay kind.
No homo.
No.
For
He had to
either.
feel another warrior's weapon on his knees.
You're gonna have to cut that out, I think.
No.
All right. That's our show, everyone. We want to thank you all for listening and supporting this podcast. As you know, this is a passion project for the three of us, and your support means oh so much to us.
Join us next week as we cover the moment of truth, spoils, desperate measures, and stuff happens.
And follow us on all of our social media, or send us an email at circleoftheworldpodcast@gmail.com.
If you haven't already, please subscribe to our podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast from. And please make sure to rate and review us. Thank you all again for listening.
Shoglig was talking shit.